I'm Pat Barnard. I'm a senior web editor for Technology Marketing Corporation, specifically TMCnet, TMC's website. And I'm here today with Carl Ford, community developer for 4GWE. And we're here today to talk about a company based down in Florida called XG Technology. XG Technology it provides technology to facilitate mobile VoIP. They've got a homegrown solution with its own product set and its own software. And Carl, I believe you did a podcast.
Well, I actually visited them as well, so I've got some thoughts about them, which, I kind of want to share with you. And
okay.
By and large, a lot of companies have had to reset themselves, and it feels like XG Technology is one of those companies, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, looking at some of the blogs that have happened in the past, it's an interesting experience, right? So,
right, yeah.
So talking about them now, I went down there, I looked at their technology. I was particularly interested because they had this announcement they were working with towns, and towns telecommunications would be eligible for the rural stimulus package, right? And there's about $7 billion sitting out there in the marketplace right now looking for people to take advantage of it in the U.S.
Right.
So I went down there to look at what they were doing, and they've got some interesting aspects. They're a TDMA proprietary solution. Certainly, we've known our history of TDMA. That's not where the standards are heading now,
right.
But it's where they've basically capitalized on some techniques to take advantage of it. And they showed me a dual mode phone that they make under the XMAX product line.
Right. Yeah.
And basically, I walked around the building making a phone call with it, and
right.
made sure I was, behind trees, near cisterns, past garbage cans, all that good stuff, right? And
right.
avoided the traditional problem of working with VoIP, where you sit there and you're talking to somebody 5 feet away, and it feels like a Hong Kong movie, right? Everything's
right.
out of sync in the voice because of the delay.
Right.
And, the stuff works well. I saw patents on the wall. There's some intellectual properties there somewhere, right?
Right.
And,
yeah.
and it was a very good conversation with Frank Peek and Sashi. And like we said on my 4GWE blog, I actually have my interview with them,
right.
which people are free to listen to.
Right.
And, the interesting thing is there seems to be a lot of people who have a lot of opinions here,
right?
Right, which you and I are kind of getting thrown into by accident, right?
Yeah, that's right. Rich Tarani, as he pointed out, XG has been a controversial company, and it seems like a lot of the controversy surrounding the company goes back, quite a few years, back to like the 05, 06 area. It wasn't long after the company launched its technology, launched its platform, XMAX, that this mid-level engineer from Qualcomm, Phil Karn, released a rather sort of damning report, on the web regarding XG's technology. And in that, he brought out some of the statements made by the company, claiming that its flash signal uses single cycle modulation to deliver longer range, using a lot less power. And one of the points Karn made is that, for decades we've known that there's an absolute lower limit on the RF energy required to be able to push out, the data over a noisy radio channel. And he's basically saying, the technologies that are already in place have already brought down, are already down to where the lower threshold already is. So his claim is basically that whatever XG has, it can't be anything all that spectacular, just simply because we're already there, with regard to the limits of the RF technology. They've probably done something on the modulation side, to make their product unique. But what the benefits are and what the performance is a little bit debatable, I would imagine. Now, I'm no expert on this stuff.
Right, right.
You've probably got a better background on it than I do. But at any rate, it definitely sounds like, there's reason to be a little bit speculative, at the least, as to what this technology's capabilities are. Karn is basically saying, look, you can't change the laws of physics. There's limitations on what you're going to be able to do no matter what way you look at it. So no matter what you say you've pulled out of your hat.
Well, that's an interesting perspective. The funny thing is that, I haven't looked at the Karen report, and God knows I'm not an engineer. However, what I do know is on the single cycle strategies, there's right now the next release of the 4G specifications in 3GPP release 9, that's what we're heading towards,
right,
has something called SCFDMA, which is single carrier frequency division multiplexing, right? And basically it's aimed at something very similar, from what I can gather from Phil Karn's statement,
right,
of trying to make it so that they can reduce the amount of power needed to basically make the initial session connections between the phone and the antenna. So, whether they are successful or not, because, the interesting thing about the report is, I don't know whether it was highlighting something that they felt was their secret sauce or was just one more thing that was what they thought was interesting and unique about them. Because when you know what it's like when you sit there and you read the PR reports, right? People end up having to try to find what's special, what's new, why is it important, right?
Right, yeah.
And sometimes, you and I have both lived long enough to see claims that make it so that the PR person feels like they've caught your attention, but as techies, you kind of sit there and go, I kind of know that this exists already, right? So
right, yeah.
let's say that we'll leave the jury out on exactly what's proprietary, what's not. What I do know is this: when you look at the technologies, we've got the major players are all heading towards LTE. The next set down is heading towards WiMAX, and depending on what your viewpoint is as to whether or not you're trying to start a greenfield or start or enhance what you have, these are the two big standardized works. Now, the next question for us is there room for proprietary, right? Well, first of all, there's a great wash of Latin America that has been TDMA along with AT&T and Telefonica for the longest time, and I'm not sure that everybody is going to run towards LTE next, right?
Right, yeah, sure.
And the other side of the equation is, from my perspective, I've always wanted to see more Wi-Fi capabilities, right? And what's interesting to me about these guys is they've got a voice Wi-Fi strategy that goes dual mode with their proprietary TDMA stuff.
Yeah, I agree. That is interesting, and it's smart thinking.
Right.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so it's possible that some WISPs or maybe some enterprises with campuses or, other people who aren't necessarily looking to be part of the GSMA or the 3GPP consortium will kind of sit there and say, hey, this looks like it's an interesting shot. And that's the kind of folks that I'm saying to myself, this is the marketplace for them.
Right.
And I think they're an interesting group. I'm looking forward to hearing more about them. Like I said, I saw the product. It worked for me. I didn't bring my radio frequency engineers with me to test it.
Right.
So, I'm going to say...
Didn't you open up the back of the phone?
No, I didn't open up the back of the phone.
The phone is made by Cambridge Consultants, is that right?
The phone is made by Cambridge. I've talked to them about who their SIP stack vendor is. I know the SIP stack vendor. I know it's within the mainstream.
Right.
I know who their wholesale services that support them. They're in the mainstream. So by and large, they're an interesting player. To that end, one more aspect about them that I kind of think people should realize is, we look over at Skype, right? And Skype is proprietary beyond belief within themselves, and then they talk to the rest of the world SIP, right?
Right.
You can make the same kind of claim about XG technology, that their proprietary is held internal to themselves, but when you talk outside to them, they're talking straight SIP.
Right.
So if you were somebody who was trying to support SIP and didn't really care about the wireless side of the equation, this might be a way to do that as well. So
right, yeah, that's a great point. They even make that point in their marketing that they're analogous to Skype over wireless. So,
right, and they don't have the marketplace that Skype does yet, and I'm not going to make a claim that they're going to, but what I will say for them is, if it's one thing I've learned about the way that the internet works, is the internet allows people to do a lot of proprietary things, internal to themselves, and then as long as they find a way to get outside IP, it's all works, right?
Right.
And that's the beauty of the world we're heading towards right now, and I think people should enjoy it.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that's a major theme at 4GWE, which you know, you and I are going to be in LA in September, and I hope people join us there.
Yeah, yeah, I do too. I do too. I think it's going to be a great, great, great show, and I expect that we'll probably get really good attendance. So, let's see. I don't know. Is there anything else that we could say about this company? I mean,
I think this is it for now. Let's see if the flame wars continue. I do want to say that if you are going to flame, I'm more than happy to send some flames my way. You know, my website, you know, I'm writing to myself. It feels like a soliloquy. I would love to have a monologue with my commentator. So, you know, stop beating up on my friend Pat. Start beating up on me. Everything will work out.
Right, right. Yeah, and I agree, too. You know, I'm also open to whatever criticism people want to, you know, send my way. You know, I'm a skeptic at heart, and you know, when I see a company like XG, you know, putting out a lot of releases, making a lot of claims, and yet there doesn't really seem to be anything really tangible going on, I'm going to be skeptical. I mean, and I think that's just sort of a natural reaction among people. I wouldn't go so far as to say that they're not holding any cards in their hand. They could be. You saw the patents.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly willing to you know, wait it out, see what plays out, and you know, who knows? I mean, obviously these things have their own destiny, if you will. So as you will.
Yeah, and you know, to that point, that might be, you know, a little bit of my history too. You know, I'm a telecom guy who, you know, guys used to come in to show me their demos all the time, right? And the demo never worked, right? And it wasn't the fact that the demo didn't work. It was the fact that they, you know, were schlepping it. They had all these things going on. And I always cut people slack and tell me what you're trying to accomplish, right? And tell me where you're trying to head, right? And listening to that was more important to me than the demo, because I knew that eventually when I was going to sign an RFP, right, I was going to have my techies and I was going to have my due diligence, and before they ever got a dollar from me, I was going to be able to kick the tires.
Right.
Yeah. And
that's a good
you know,
point.
that's the goal. You know, is to get to the point where we know that we've got product that people are using.
Right. Okay. Great. Carl, thanks very much for joining us today. And that's it from the TMC Newsroom.